Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Katie and I operate under the name Mata Moon. And today I felt called to share my experience with navigating the in-between space, or what I call the void, the unknown. And the reason I feel so called to share this is because I recognize that there's a profound amount of us on a collective level that are going through the same or similar experience of trying to navigate this space of uncertainty. And I'm recognizing that it is causing a lot of disorientation, um, and a lot of fear, which I totally relate to that. So, in this video, I just want to share a little bit about my experience with navigating this unknown space, which I feel like for the entire year of 2022, I have been very much in that space. And then I would also like to offer some practices that can be applied just to help nourish and ground the body, which I have been finding for myself is essential for navigating this space and keeping myself grounded and kind of keeping the energies of fear and anxiety at bay. And so, just to preface with a little bit about myself, this is my first video, and it's also October 2nd. And so, here where I am in the Northern Hemisphere, it is the fall season and the first official month of fall. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, happy spring. But right now it's definitely a time of transition and of there's an energy of death. And it's definitely for me like this very phoenix rising. The energetics are supporting the release of what is no longer serving so that new can be born. And so I am a certified Ayurvedic health coach, soon to be certified counselor. And it's truly my passion to work with the natural cycles of life. And so a lot of the information that I share comes from the principles and practices of Ayurveda and Tantra. And so to begin, I just want to start with this in-between space and something that I've noticed, just navigating it myself. And that is the energetics of the higher self versus the energetics of the lower or ego self. And what I have found is that I call it this battle between, or this struggle between the higher self and the ego self that I've kind of recently been consciously calling upon and allowing both of these energies to be at play just to get familiar with them. And so what I mean by that is I've noticed that there is this voice or inner knowing within me that's that really truly is just knowing. It's very calm, and I describe it as kind of like a nudge, like an inner nudge. But it's not an inner nudge that feels pressuring, it's just an inner knowing. And then I also have this voice inside me that is very pressuring and quite demanding and really based in fear. And so you can probably get a feel for which one is which. But as I'm going through my process, I'm really finding that I'm going between both the two of those energies. So one minute I'm really tapped into my higher self, and then the next minute my ego mind is coming in, and it becomes kind of like this power struggle between the two, where it's like I actually start to lose my sense of awareness of like which one is which. Like the lines get blurred really easily, because it will be like one moment I'm feeling really guided, but then out of nowhere, I don't even realize my ego comes in, and it almost tricks me into thinking it's my higher self. So it's like I'm have been trying to figure out, okay, well, which one is which? And so what I have found is that like I had said before, the higher self is a lot more gentle, and the ego mind is a lot more pressured. Do this, get this done. And also, what I have noticed is that when it comes to moving forward on the path, my higher self will give me glimpses, I would say, of the whole, but mostly what I receive from my higher self is pieces of the whole. So or pieces of the puzzle. So I'm going to give an example in a second, but whereas my ego mind, the energetics of that feel way more chaotic and way more in this energy of needing to know every single detail and have it all figured out before I make any moves, which really has resulted in me becoming paralyzed and not taking any steps forward. And so I'm just going to give a real life example to explain this better. I am currently getting ready to move out of my apartment and potentially out of my city. And there's been this voice within me that doesn't feel pressuring, that's not like, you need to do this, like hurry up and figure it out. It's like this inner knowing that my energy is wanting to go somewhere else. And so the messages that I have been receiving have basically been to start packing my things in my apartment and start donating or selling or getting rid of things in my apartment. So that is the messages that I have been receiving. And so, but that's it. So there's no, this is where you're going. This is how it's going to happen. Right now, it's really just been start packing your stuff, start donating your stuff. And so I receive that, and it feels very right in my body. And it just feels like I almost get this sense of peace when I just allow myself to receive that. However, Then on the other hand, I have my mind that comes in that can't really grasp like what is going on. It can't really understand. It's it can't make sense of what my higher self is telling me because it doesn't have all of the details. And the thing is, the higher self sees our life from like this high vantage point, whereas in the mind is limited. And so the mind, when we're really navigating these void spaces, which in the void exists infinite possibilities, the mind, which is very finite, can't comprehend, can't grasp that infiniteness of the universe and of the true nature of life. And so I'm finding that I'll get into these spaces where my mind is like wanting to take control and wanting to understand, but it can't understand. And when I'm going between the two, where my higher self is telling me one thing but then my mind is wanting all the details, it causes a lot of disorientation and a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, because it's like the mind gets really overwhelmed and the higher self actually doesn't, it's only giving the next step, like the next step, one by one, bit by bit, that you need to take in the present moment, because that's all that really matters. That's all you really need to do. Everything exists right now in the present moment. But then the mind wants to know all of the details and how you're going to get there. And if I'm just sell all my stuff, then what happens? Where am I going to go? And what am I going to do? And it starts to get to a point where I found in my journey where my mind will actually like shut out my higher self, because it can't understand it. It can't logically comprehend what's going on or where it's being led. So it's like, I'm not going to listen to you. Like this makes no sense. So no, I'm just going to stay limited. So yeah, that is just has been my experience with working with these energies. And I just am checking my notes here because sometimes I can get a little bit off track. But yeah, so that is what I have been experiencing just in my own journey of navigating this in-between state. And so what the message that I really want to convey is, if you are in this stage or in this state of in-between and you have gotten to a point where you are aware of your higher self and you are aware of your ego self, and I think that is a huge first step, is just becoming aware, starting to be able to kind of pendulate between the two, or just like know, okay, this is more of my higher self and this is more of my ego self coming online. That's like a really good first step in just kind of noticing, becoming curious about these two energies that are always operating. But what I'm wanting to convey here truly is that the energy of the higher self is a very present in the moment. It's not going to lay out the whole plan. It's not going to give you every single step, because it doesn't need to, because it knows that everything exists right here, right now. So why would it need to give you all of the details? That would just be overwhelming, right? Like if we it's like we need to take things one step at a time versus the ego which is more of an energy of like really needing to have it all figured out. You need to have every single plan laid out. You need to know all of the steps, all the details, exactly how you're going to get there. And until you have all that figured out, it doesn't want to take the next steps. It doesn't want to continue forward on the path. So that really is a good way to just start working with these two energies, to begin to notice, okay, does this feel like a nudge that's a little bit more like, that's calm, that's just a knowing, that's very much rooted in this present. Like it could just be, go do that thing, like go make that call or cancel that thing or go sell that thing or donate that thing? Or is it more of like, well, I need to know exactly when I'm selling this so that I know exactly where it's going, and then I need to know exactly what time and where I'm going to end up and how it's all going to play out. And you get the point. Like that didn't really make sense, but it's more of like this energy of just needing to have it all figured out right now, all the details. That's the ego. Higher self is very present, just gives you what you need in this present moment right now. And so with working with these energies, a big thing too is also opening up to trust in the higher self and trust in the guidance that you're receiving, because it's not going to make sense to the mind, to the ego. It's really not a lot of the times. And learning to trust in your higher self and trust in the universe and trust in the guidance and kind of open yourself up to a sense of playfulness and curiosity rather than stewing in worry, which I know it's so much easier said than done. And I, right now, like with the example that I gave you, with knowing that I'm moving and my energy's wanting to go somewhere else, but just not having any of the details really, it's super overwhelming at times. And especially when I start to allow my mind to come in and take over, it can feel like just so scary and so hard to trust. And I just find that just the awareness of these two energies is actually what has helped me so much. Is like, I know now that when my ego mind is online. So it's like, okay, I know this is just my fear and my ego chatter, and really my ego just trying to keep me safe, and I can appreciate it and love it while also not feeding into it so deeply. Whereas before I had this awareness of these two energies, it was more of like I would just spiral down into my mind and into my thoughts and get really afraid and truly become quite paralyzed. So, yeah, I think that another just interesting way to kind of frame it is, it's like the difference between a parent that's like kind of forcing you and like yelling at you and trying to have you have all of your shit figured out, or like push you into a certain direction and like put a lot of pressure on you, versus a parent that's guiding you and like leading you and helping you to find your path in a way that feels really loving, which is the higher self. And so I hope that by sharing a little bit of my experience with the energetics of these two selves is helpful to anyone who may be experiencing this in-between phase. I like to think about it, if anyone's familiar with tarot, it's that Two of Swords, that very in between. You're not really sure what's to come. You just kind of know that you have to let go of some things. And I also always say to myself, there's always a decrease before the increase. You got to decrease before you increase. You got to let go and shed. And so that brings me into just the next piece of this video, which I will try and make quickly so this doesn't get too long. But in the Northern Hemisphere, we are in the fall season. The veil is quite thin between the energies of life and death. This is a big transitional time, and the junctions between the changing of seasons are always a time of transition and of releasing and kind of like taking a step back and assessing like where we are at and what we no longer want to carry with us into the next cycle and what we do want to carry with us into the next cycle. And so being that we are in this space, or that I'm in this space, it's October 2nd as I'm recording this, there's definitely energies that can be really ungrounding at play right now. So in Ayurvedic philosophy, the energies that are at play, or the elements that are at play right now, are the elements of air and ether. And so, of course, those two elements are super ungrounding. You know, those are not grounding elements whatsoever. Those are going to take you up. Whereas in right now, you actually, what's going to be supportive, especially if you are moving into the fall season, but even if you're moving into the spring, just because any transition is really a time of grounding. So I just want to offer some practices that can be really helpful and nourishing for this fall season and for any periods of your life where you're going through transitions and you're just feeling like the mind is really taking over and you're experiencing a lot of fear and anxiety, or overwhelm, or maybe like a lot of spaciness, like you're just not feeling rooted to the ground. So some practices that will be really nourishing for this time and for those times in your life are, for one, it's called Abhyanga in Ayurveda, but it's just an oil massage, a body massage. And so what that looks like is taking an oil of your liking. Almond oil is a really good neutral oil for many body types, but if there's a specific oil for your body type, if you're someone who gets dry pretty easily, a sesame oil would be something that would be suitable for you and really nourishing for you. But what I like to do is just warm up a little bit of oil. I put it on the stovetop and I just warm it. And either in the morning or in the evening, I just carve out like anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to do a body massage, a warm oil body massage, where I just really take the time to nourish myself and to feel myself and to touch myself and give myself loving touch, nurturing touch. And so the reason why this is so beneficial is because we all might know that when we get touched by a lover, touched by someone who we love, it really just creates a sense of calm and safety within the body. And so if you do this practice, if you make this like a weekly practice or even a daily practice or a few times a week practice, Like you are signaling through your touch to your body that you are safe and that all is well. And that's super grounding and nourishing for the body and is going to be super helpful in getting you back into your body and back into center so that you're actually able to work with the higher self instead of just being so caught up in the mind. And so the second practice that I want to share is one where you meditate on the soles of your feet. So you can literally just sit on a chair or wherever, on a couch. You could do this outside on nature, you could do it standing. And you just have your feet planted on the ground, and you just bring your inner awareness to the soles of your feet. And in the beginning, this can be quite challenging because most of humanity is not used to being in their bodies anymore. A lot of us really are living from the throat up. And so it can be a bit of a challenge to actually bring awareness into the body and keep it in the body. However, if you do this practice, and you can literally do it for like 2 to 10 minutes, and you just bring your awareness to your feet, you might start to feel that there's like some sensation there, a tingling, or like a pulsation. Maybe you feel nothing, but over time, you just kind of notice if you can begin to feel into your body and what's there, what sensations arise. But just rooting into the soles of the feet, again, is super grounding. It brings you back into yourself, and it's from this embodiment that you're able to access your higher self. And then lastly, just some really simple things to integrate during this time would be warming teas, like a warm ginger tea, just including that into your daily routine. Maybe in the morning you do that, or you could get like a water bottle and just keep hot ginger tea in it and sip on that throughout the day. That's going to be really warming for the system and really grounding and nourishing for the system. It's also quite cleansing for the system and really good for digestion. So it's kind of like a win-win. It's just great for, you really can't go wrong with incorporating ginger tea. And I just will take some fresh ginger and grate it into water, into hot water, warm water. And then also during this time, and again, this is also going to be dependent on where you are in the world and the energetics that are going on around you, but just in general, if you are feeling really ungrounded and really spacey and nervous and fear and worry, and your higher self is telling you to do these things that just seem absolutely freaking crazy to your ego mind, incorporating more grounding, nourishing, oily foods into your diet can actually really help you to get into your body and to stay grounded and really nourished. And a lot of times when we're feeling really spacey and really just up here, we actually will reach for things that will continue to vitiate or aggravate the imbalance. So when we're really out of balance, we actually reach for things that will take us more out of that, that will create more imbalance. But what we actually want to do, and what makes sense if you really think about it, is to look to the opposite qualities in order to ground us and to bring ourselves back into harmony or homeostasis. So when feeling a lot of energies of just air and ether, you're going to want to look to eating nourishing foods, warming foods. You wouldn't really want to be eating like a lot of raw salads, or in the fall and winter, like drinking cold smoothies or smoothie bowls, or eating tons of like dry foods like chips and crackers and popcorn. You would actually want to have more nourishing foods like healthy fats, avocados, olive oils, ghee, sweet potatoes. Think any of the grounding vegetables, um, warming foods, warming spices, sipping on teas like chai teas, pumpkin lattes, that's a big thing. Um, all of that is going to be highly, highly supportive for these times of transitions seasonally, as well as inner transitions and moving through these void spaces. So, yeah, I think that is all that I wanted to share today. I will leave some information in the description below. And I just am sending so much love and support. Please do leave any comments if you have any questions. I would love to help answer them if I can. And yeah, may we all move through this void space with as much ease and peace and love in our systems as possible. And just remember that you are not alone, and that the universe is always supporting you. And sometimes it just takes cultivating a little bit of courage to set all the details aside, needing to have it all figured out aside, and just really trusting that there are forces bigger than our limited mind that are guiding us and just want the absolute freaking best for us. So, much love to all. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for tuning in, and if you've listened this far, I really appreciate it, and I hope that this wisdom and some of these practices will be of service to you.